Hey guys, Jamie Faye here, Millennial Life and Relationship Coach, and I'd like to welcome you to this video all about anxiety. It's Wellness Wednesday, and that's a topic for today. So thank you for being here, and replayers, thank you for joining as well. If you don't know me yet, when you're here, say hi. I'd love to give you a shout out. If you don't know me yet, I'm a Millennial Life and Relationship Coach, and what that means is that I help my clients peel back the layers, really get to know who they are, uncover the sources of things that they're struggling with and keeping them stuck. And I help them move forward, go from surviving to thriving, and become rock star communicators where they're able to communicate with themselves because they understand themselves and they're able to communicate with those around them effectively and authentically. So here we go. This video is really dear to my heart and personal to me because I suffered with anxiety for 10 years, and about 50% of my clients suffer from some form of anxiety. So anxiety is a word that's just in some ways overused, but also can really apply to many people who suffer from different forms of anxiety. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Like, what is anxiety? So as you hop on, make sure to say hi so that I know you're here. And if you have anxiety, then watch through the whole thing or come back and watch this video because I know that there is at least 1, 2, or 3 things that are going to help you feel more comforted or help you understand your anxiety more, and hopefully inspire you to take action and know that it is not something that you have to live with forever. So here we go. What is anxiety? There are a bunch of types of anxiety, so I'm going to talk about each one just a sentence to understand the different kinds, and then explain which ones I'm specifically talking about in this video. So in anxiety, we have general anxiety disorder, or GAD. That is the disorder that a lot of people suffer from. It can include anxiety attacks, which I'll talk about in a second, or not. It can include other kinds of symptoms, just like crazy worry, where you actually might feel like you're going crazy. Some people say that, express that feeling, or feeling dizzy, or shortness of breath, or fatigue, or dry mouth, or all kinds of things. You might have experience with that anxiety attacks. There's also panic disorder, which has very similar manifestations, but the difference between a panic attack and an anxiety attack, which I think is a really important distinction, is that a panic attack, the trigger is, you're not aware of the actual trigger. You don't know exactly why you're experiencing this palpitations and shortness of breath. And with anxiety attacks, you can identify the situation or the trigger that brings on this attack. So we've got general anxiety disorder, we've got panic disorder, which seem very similar, and we've got social anxiety, and we have performance anxiety, and then we have stress disorder and a few others that are similar, but mostly today what I'm talking about is general anxiety disorder and social anxiety, because they have a lot of similarities. And usually people who have one of those suffer from anxiety attacks of some kind. So if you're here, say hi. I want to know you're here. Okay. So one of the questions is, why do you have anxiety, right? So what are the triggers for you? And if you've discovered from the beginning of this video that you have panic attacks and they're not necessarily anxiety attacks, it doesn't mean that you don't have anxiety. It could mean you have both panic disorder and anxiety attacks. Totally fine. It doesn't really matter. Diagnostically, in my experience and the experience of my clients who have anxiety, who have either been in therapy, been on medication, which we're going to talk about as well, or not, or are in therapy on medication now, can tell you that in the end, it doesn't really matter, just the difference between if you know the trigger or not. So I want to know, for you, I want you to take a moment to think about, what are the triggers of your anxiety? I'll give you some examples. Is it something like you're feeling out of control? Like out of control with a particular situation, with communications with someone you know? Are you feeling misunderstood? Are you feeling unheard? Are you feeling like that you're stuck and there's no solution? Like you're going round and round thinking about something and you have an anxiety attack because you just can't find a solution. There's no way to fix this. So if any of those ring a bell for you, feel free to comment below. If any of them ring a bell, say yes. That yes, one of those is the reasons why I know that I have an anxiety attack or have had anxiety attacks. We'll go a little bit more into the real reasons, and those are triggers, and those are real reasons. But one of the biggest reasons that we have anxiety or anxiety attacks is that we're not living in the moment, that we're really detached from the present. And a lot of people have, I'm going to go into a bunch of real life scenarios, have anxiety about things that are going to happen in the future or things that have happened in the past, like reliving a particular trauma. It can be an objectively difficult trauma, or it can be something just like a conversation that didn't go the way you wanted it to, or you didn't express yourself, you were shut down. It could be just like not doing well on some kind of performance test, whatever that could mean for you. Another thing could be like living over and over and over again an embarrassment, or something that you're very concerned that you might be embarrassed about or traumatized in the future. So if any of that makes sense to you, you can just write yeah. So why do you have anxiety attacks? So why do you have anxiety? Could be any of those reasons. And then an anxiety attack is something that is triggered by a group of thoughts or a specific situation or action or something that happens that then brings on this anxiety attack. And I'm going to tell my personal anxiety story as well as give you a lot of examples of other people, of my clients that I know of. So a really underlying feeling, actually, I'll go here first, change my mind. Okay, so I'll give you some examples of my clients who have anxiety who I have helped. So one would be, I have a client who's worried about being single forever. She actually has these words of like, I'm worried about dying alone. She has extreme FOMO, fear of missing out, of people doing things without her, of not inviting her. Those are the main things that she has anxiety about. And it can paralyze her and make her unable to move and just be wrapped up in her loop of thoughts. She actually, for example, doesn't have what I would call anxiety attacks. She just has severe anxiety. I have another client who has, I have two clients actually right now with social anxiety. One is that she doesn't want to go into group settings because she feels that if she speaks out and expresses herself, that people will think she's stupid. I have another client who wants to go out and wants to contribute to a conversation, but finds that the people that she's often in conversations with are really loud and overbearing in these conversations, and that's not her personality. So she feels like she has to change her personality and be loud in order to be heard, or literally to be heard, but also for her to share her opinions. Do any of these sound like you? So just take a moment. I'm going to give you a few more examples. I have a client who had a lot of anxiety about her long-term plans, about like what she was going to do with her business, if she was going to sell it or not, if where she was going to live in next year. So a lot of that, like dealing with the future, and we worked a lot on planning and all these things. And she also had anxiety attacks that were triggered by a friend who would guilt her. And when she wasn't able to be there for her, even when my client was in crisis mode. So those were things that would trigger her. So I wonder if anything that we've talked about yet can bring up for you one of the reasons why you have anxiety or you have anxiety attacks. So just take a minute to think about that. I have a couple more examples just to show you that it is so common to live with anxiety and anxiety attacks, and how coaching and all the other things I'm going to talk about can absolutely help you and cure your anxiety over time, the way I've cured myself of anxiety and no longer live with that suffering. So I have another client who needed to go back on Facebook because she wanted to build a business, and that was a huge trigger of anxiety for her, where she couldn't before coming to me do that and reopen her Facebook. Another one is in general, like having issues with confrontation in general. Like, is it difficult for you to confront your partner, your parents, your sibling, your friend, your colleague about things that you need to talk about or things that are bothering you, but you have anxiety about coming forward? So these are all examples of real life, current things that my clients are dealing with and that I help them with, and I can help you too. So I'm going to tell you what I want to ask you. So I want to take, now that you've maybe identified a trigger or two, I want to ask you, why do you think you have anxiety attack? If you have anxiety, which most people have some form of stress or anxiety, why do you think it is that it becomes an attack? This, I think, is one of the biggest and most empowering discoveries that I lead my clients to get to when they learn about why they have anxiety attacks, whether it's to release, whether it's to connect with themselves, etc. So, briefly, my story with anxiety is that I started having anxiety attacks when I was about 16, and it was triggered for me by that I was really stressing out about something that was happening at school, and I went to talk to my mom about it. Love you, Mom. I know you watch this, but she knows the story, so it's not a blame game. It's just sharing my experience to help others. And I went to my mom to tell her about my concern, and because she didn't understand the depth of my concern and how fearful I was about the outcome, like the consequences of what was happening at school, she was like, Jamie, it's okay. It's not a big deal. And she meant it from the most beautiful, heartwarming, empathetic place. But for me, it just felt like you just don't understand. You don't understand how much this is bothering me and how upset I am. And that's when my first anxiety attack happened. My anxiety attacks lasted about 10 years. Thank goodness I did not have them extremely frequently. But they were triggered by moments of feeling out of control or feeling misunderstood or feeling like I couldn't do anything. Like being in a professional situation and being like, this person doesn't understand me and I can't do anything about it. Like I can't really say what I think, or I can't, they're not hearing me, or whatever it was. So for me, that's what it was. And I had anxiety attacks that were described, I always knew the trigger. So they weren't panic attacks. And for me, they were hyperventilating and crying, and getting really hot and sweaty. That's really how my anxiety attacks manifested. But for everyone, they're a little bit different. So it's important also to be compassionate to yourself that for everyone, they're different. So, how does your anxiety manifest? I'd love to know, or love for you to take a second to think about it, how your anxiety manifests in your body, whether it's into attacks or not. Just what does it look like for you? What kind of loops do you go through? Do you get still? Do you pace? Do you sit down? Do you cry? What is it for you? Some people feel dizzy or nauseous. Okay, so what is anxiety really in the body, and what are the causes? Now, I'm going to give you what WebMD says, just because, for many reasons, to show you that it's not just one thing or the other. WebMD says it's a combination of genetics as well as brain chemistry, agreed, as well as environmental factors like situations or taking or withdrawing from taking certain drugs like caffeine, alcohol, nicotine even, which I'm 100% in agreement with. And the treatment can be medication, cognitive behavioral therapy. This is what WebMD says, which I love. It talks about very specific type of therapy, which is very strategic, and relaxation techniques. So I would definitely like to take a second to talk about the controversy in this and tell you my perspective and my personal and professional experience is that anxiety is both chemical, both situational, both logical, and mind and brain functioning. It comes from all of those things. And my understanding of that is how I help my clients relieve themselves of symptoms and causes of anxiety. So how I personally cured my anxiety is through understanding over time the reasons why I was worried or why I was concerned, why I felt out of control, and why I felt misunderstood. Through my self-discovery and personal development journey, which included therapy and coaching and yoga and all of that, was developed a deep and true self-acceptance and self-love. You can check out my video about self-love. It includes all the steps for that. And that is a big part of this, because we're less worried on what's going on around us and less worried about what other people think of us. And what else? I changed my diet. Changing your diet is huge if you have anxiety. Taking out caffeine, nicotine, alcohol, and eating a diet that does not include, not high in sugar, not high in gluten. I have a lot of recommendations for this, but one of the best ones is this book. It's by Kelly Brogan. She's a psychiatrist, a functional medicine doctor, and her life was changed when she realized that the way she was taught in medical school to prescribe medication was absolutely backwards. And she teaches all about how to heal your body and your brain through food and how food is information. So I definitely suggest picking up this book. It's incredible. She's incredible. And she wrote a book from a scientific point of view of everything that I know and believe and teach. And she just gives me the rock hard science to show people and say, like, look, it's documented. It's not just me. It's not just me experiencing it. I know it's true, and now you can read this book and take it with you. And a big one for me was yoga and making sure I get enough sleep. And yoga can be an incredible treatment for anxiety combined with all the other things, because it works on your parasympathetic nervous system, which is what calms you and keeps you at a more stable place through the soul movements, etc. Of course, there are other parts of yoga which work on the sympathetic nervous system, and you don't have to do those parts of yoga until you really stabilized the other side. So if you're struggling with anxiety, I want to hear from you. Let's talk. Let's see if there's a way that I can support you and help you through this, because I help my clients every day with all these symptoms of anxiety. If you're just joining now, please go back and watch the video so that you know all the things I'm talking about. And I believe that curing anxiety comes from the outside in and the inside out, as I believe in all kinds of real deep healing. I believe in healing that comes from working with the psyche at a very base level, as well as working with logical words and changing them in order to change towards the inside. And I believe that that is the only way to really heal in any way. Meaning from the inside out, from your diet, from the outside in, into understanding logically why you have anxiety, and then using strategies and tools to create lasting positive change and to relieve yourself of the symptoms and the cause. So I just got yesterday actually this amazing testimonial from a client that I only worked with for 3 months so far. And she told me in our 12th session that she cannot believe, she's absolutely amazed that after 3 months, she doesn't have anxiety. And she is that her anxiety is almost completely gone, she says, and she doesn't have anxiety attacks anymore. And she, for years, for over 10 years, I think almost 15 years, was on medication and went off before coming to see me. And the tools and strategies that I gave her and the deep understanding that she has now of herself has relieved her of these things. So she wrote, I'll just read it because I think it's really exciting. I began coaching with Jamie when I realized I needed help coping with my anxiety. And what I got was that and so much more. Throughout our session, she was attentive, inspiring, and thought outside of the box to find solutions for me to live my best life. At the end of our coaching sessions, I felt empowered, confident about my potential journey, and my anxiety is almost completely gone. For those dealing with anxiety and just wanting to live their best life and feel confident about their future, I definitely recommend Jamie. So I just think that it's amazing, and I know that it's in your control to take that step and reach out to me and say that you're ready to stop suffering and really understand what's going on and relieve yourself of these symptoms. So yeah, please don't wait any longer and reach out to me, and I'll be happy to set up a free discovery session for you to make sure and to see that we're a good fit. So thanks for watching, and see you soon on Facebook Live. If you have any questions that you'd like me to talk about or answer on Wellness Wednesday or any other day, please let me know. Thanks, and see you soon. Bye.